Alright, so I am back with the Sewcialites number 19 Unity block. I'm doing the 9-inch block, and I've got pink for my print and the same old background of white and blue. So for the background, you're going to need two 3-inch squares, which you actually will draw a line on and then cut in half, so you're going to get triangles from this. And then you're also going to need 8 2 by 3.5-inch rectangles, which are going to be making flying geese. So I have the 8 here. And then for your print, you're going to need two 4-inch squares, which I have here, and you draw a line on those and cut those in half to make a triangle as well, both of them. And then you'll be needing one 3.5-inch square for 2-inch squares, which are going to be in the corners of your block, and you're leaving these whole. And then you're going to need 16 2-inch squares, and you're going to draw diagonal lines on them like this. So that way you can sew on those lines and create little triangles in your flying geese here. So I have them paired by how they're going to kind of go together. These stay whole. This is going to be going on as well. So I've already cut my A's and my C's in half. Now I'm going to take D, which is the 3.5-inch square of my print right here. And we are going to start sewing on the A's. So with this one, you're going to do a 1/4-inch seam allowance. And you're trying to basically do, you can eyeball like an equal portion on both of these sides. So you're going to do a 1/4-inch seam allowance, open it up, do the other side as well, open it up, and then all these other sides as well. And then you're going to trim it down into a 4 by 3/4-inch square, and then you'll be moving on to your next piece. So first I'm going to sew all these triangles on with a 1/4-inch seam allowance, press towards the inner square, my print square, and then I'll come back and we'll work with the other print as well. Alright, so I am back and I've cut down my square, so it is 4 3/4-inch square, and then I'm going to be doing my C square, so these will bring it up to 6.5 inches. So I'll be putting these on like this. And sewing them with a 1/4-inch seam allowance. And pressing them towards the print side of my square and then trimming them down. And so we'll come back when I'm done and I'll have a 6.5-inch block here, and then we'll start working on our flying geese. Alright, so now I have my 6.5-inch block. I've trimmed it down and taken all the excess off. So now we can start working on our flying geese. So I'll move these aside. Remember, you're keeping these 4 blocks for the corners. You're taking 16 of your 2-inch blocks with lines already drawn diagonally on them, and your 8 pieces of background rectangles. I'm going to lay them all out. And we're going to put these little squares on the corners of these pieces. So we'll go through these, put them all on the corners. Making sure that your final point is ending towards the center of your rectangle. Okay, just like that. You're going to sew directly on the line, and then you're going to be pressing out towards your print square. And I will get back to you after I've sewn on those lines, cut with a 1/4-inch seam allowance, press towards my print square, and then we'll put on the second half of our flying geese. Alright, so now I have all 8 of my pieces on the bottom left side of my flying geese done. So now I can take the remaining 8 of my 2-inch blocks with the diagonal pointing in towards the middle to make a nice point on the other side of my blocks for the flying geese to be completed. We're going to lay those all out. Sew directly on the line with a 1/4 inch seam allowance cut on the other side, and then press towards your dark side. And then we'll be done with the flying geese. So once I have done that, sewn on the line, cut with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and press towards my print, I will get back to you guys. Alright, so I have all my flying geese done now, and they look like this. So now we can actually start laying out this pattern. So first we're going to have our 6.5 inch square in the middle, and then you're going to have, with your print, your background print facing out, like arrows pointing out, you're going to have them on either side like this. Same down here. And same up here. It's going to be like that. And then, then you're going to have your 4 leftover print squares, 2-inch print squares. And you're going to pop them into the corners like this. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew this strip together, I'm going to sew these 2 together and then put them on here, sew these 2 together and then put them onto here with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then sew this bottom row across with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then I will be putting these 3 pieces together. So once I've done the strips, I'll come back to you and then we'll sew the whole block together. Alright, so I am back and I have these 3 strips sewn together now. And now I'm going to fold this down, pin it, sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, press it open on both sides. It'll iron out like that. And then we'll take this full piece, fold it down, or fold this one technically up like this. Pin it, sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then press it, and we will be done with the block. So I will come back to you once I have sewn both of these pieces together and this piece together, and I will show you the complete block. Alright, so this is the final block of the Unity number 19 Sewcialites block. It's a pretty nice block. I did not get some of the seams as nice as I would like them, but overall it's a really pretty block. And so on the back side for my seam pressing, I've pressed them open because there's just a lot of fabric in these areas. So hopefully this tutorial was helpful, and I will be seeing you guys next week for the number 20 block of Sewcialites.